So this is a quick recap, a quick review of last week. And if you remember, this was our introduction from last week. So our introduction had 5 steps. Greet the audience, set up your credibility, introduce your topic, break down your topic into smaller parts, and then define your question policy. Well, today we're going to let me change. We're going to add 2 new things and adjust 1. So we're going to add a power statistic or question, and we're going to add an expectation, and we're going to adjust, we're going to change the topic. So before we had the topic here, number 3, now we're going to put the topic as number 4, but we're going to make it better, a little bit better. So we're going to add 2 new skills, and we're going to adjust, we're going to improve 1 skill. All right, whenever you buy a book about how to give a presentation, there are some really common ideas or common messages that the books tell you. They say, give a big statistic or a powerful statistic, or ask the audience a question. But the problem is a lot of these textbooks don't go into detail on what is a good statistic, what is a good number, what is a meaningful statistic, how do I get the audience's attention with a power statistic, what is a good question. A question is one of the most challenging things you can do to start a presentation. Many presentations go bad with a question that is not good. And so we'll talk about some of the goods and the bads, the do's and the don'ts. Let's talk about power statistics first and questions. So this is where we go. If we're going to use a power statistic, that's great. Or we can use a question, but we don't want to use both at the same time. When I give a presentation or when I write a presentation for a client, I generally don't use both of these techniques together. I use either a presentation, either a power statistic or a question. So what's a power statistic? Well, power statistic is if you have a great number, a great statistic that you think will shock or motivate or inspire your audience, use it. The important thing is the number must have an emotional element. It must be really sad. It must be really shocking. It must be really amazing, like how amazing you are. It must generate an emotion in your audience. If your power statistic has no emotional context, it's not going to help your audience get excited about your presentation. If I started my presentation and I said, last year, my company sold 2 products in Japan. Well, what does that mean? 2 products in 1 year? That's not exciting. Well, how's that exciting? So the first thing to think about is try to choose something emotional. So a big number is good, or a small number is good if that has meaning, if that has emotional context. But the next thing to think about is how you communicate big numbers. So let's imagine that we want to talk about car accidents. Maybe this terrible topic. Maybe my company is a car insurance company, okay? And I want to say that there are millions, I just did some math here, millions of car accidents every year, millions of car accidents. But that number is too high for people to understand, 7 million. Humans basically don't understand big numbers. We don't understand them, and you might think you're smart, but I promise you, you don't understand a big number. The reason is because your brain has never seen a big number. Think about what the biggest number you have ever seen in your life is. Really seen. What's the biggest number? For me, it's Wembley Stadium in London. I went to an England football match when I was younger, and there was what, 90, about 88, 90, maybe 90,000 people there. I think that's the biggest number I've ever seen, that I knew the number. Of course, yeah, I've been to the beach and I've seen sand. I know there's millions of pieces, but how do I identify a big number? That's a big problem for humans. So a common mistake presenters make is they try to come into a presentation and they give a big number and they expect people to understand what it means. 20 million, 7 billion. But actually, the audience don't really internalize that number because we've never really seen that number. Really, is that the biggest number? No, maybe. Yeah, maybe when I saw President Obama, when he was sworn in as a president, I think maybe 200,000 people were there, but I only saw it on TV. I didn't see it for real. So I've got a few techniques I use. One technique I use is I try to bring the number down and connect it to my presentation. So look at this technique. So I calculate, okay, here's the yearly number, all right? And my presentation is, let's say 1 hour. So the yearly number is blah, 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 big number. And my presentation is 1 hour. All I do is I divide the big number by 365 days, divide it by 24 hours. Okay, that's my presentation. And I say, in the time it takes me to give my presentation today, over 5,000 people will have suffered from a car accident globally. Look at that technique. If I chose the real number, so 5,000 times 24 times 365, okay, the number's 44 million, okay, 44 million. But I've never seen 44 million people before. I don't know what 44 million looks like. So some presenters might stand up, fix their collar because they're a car insurance company and they want to tell everybody how many people have an accident. Last year in the world, 44 million people had an accident because they're setting up their car insurance presentation. But the audience, there's no impact on the audience, almost zero. People go, oh, that's a big number. Oh, I don't know what 44 million looks like, but I can't internalize 44 million. It's just not possible. So one really good technique you can do is you can use the length of your audience, the length of your presentation to help your audience connect with a smaller number. Most people know what 5,000 is. 5,000 is a realistic number. It's the number of people on a train. It's the number of people in a small stadium. So this is one technique you can use to make a power statistic more realistic. Another technique you can do, and I love this technique, is to try to connect the audience. So if you have an audience, let's say 20 people in your audience, 20 people, and my power statistic is 20%. So 1 in 5 people in Japan don't have enough time to take a holiday every year, right? That's my power statistic. Maybe my presentation today is about taking a vacation, the importance of a vacation. Maybe I'm a JTB, a big Japanese travel company. Maybe I'm Expedia, a big online travel company. Maybe my presentation is about selling vacations. So I want to start with the power statistic, 1 in 5 people in Japan. Well, that's okay. That's understandable. 1 in 5 people in Japan currently don't have enough time to take a holiday every year. Okay. That means 4 members of today's audience don't have enough time to get away. Look at what I did. I was smart. I thought, well, my audience has 20 people. My statistic is 1 in 5 people in Japan. If I assume my audience is kind of an average population of people, it's not special in any way, then that means on average, 4 people in my audience are members of this group. This is a really great technique to get your audience to buy into your presentation. Buy into is what we do when we invest. We buy into a stock, we buy into a share, we buy into Intel, we buy into AMD, we buy into Toyota, we buy into Nintendo. We buy into means we invest. Finance, we invest our money, but presentations, we want to invest our time. We want the audience to invest their time. So if the audience can understand how this presentation connects with them, that's exciting. So if I'm an audience member and a presenter says this to me, I think, oh yeah, that's me. I'm 1 out of 5. I'm 1 of the 4. Who are the other 3? And I start to look around. Or if it's not me, I think, oh, not me. Who is it? Who are the 4 people? In any case, it makes your audience mentally activate before your presentation starts. Now you've got them interested, or a little bit more interested. Yeah, this one here, 25% of the world's population suffer from dry skin. Me too. So I'm sure many of you in this room can empathize with this issue. So I've given a statistic here. This is a power statistic. Maybe I'm a skincare company, maybe Unilever, and I'm selling Dove. Maybe my product is Dove moisturizer. And I want to use my power statistic. 25% of the world's population have dry skin. Okay, well, this one's a bit sensitive, so I don't want to use the previous technique. You know, like, oh, that means 5 people in this room have dry skin. Yeah, that's a bit of a sensitive topic. So I try to just simply connect with the audience. Yeah, I'm sure many of you can empathize with this challenge. And again, that helps the audience understand, yeah, that's me. Oh, whew, no, that's not me, but I'm sorry for everybody else who has that problem. So one of the first things you should be doing with a power statistic is helping the audience connect with your presentation, help them understand why it's meaningful for them. Use time, use the time of your presentation to make the big number smaller and more meaningful. That means at the end of your presentation, you can connect back to the start and talk about that number again. Or try to connect the audience's size. If there are 20 people in the audience, try to connect with that and relate to how many people in the audience are connected to this issue. What about a question? A question, starting your presentation with a question is really dangerous. There are many mistakes people make. I listened to a presentation, I don't know, 2 years ago, and the presenter, not my client, the presenter started his presentation with, okay, everybody, so do you like sports? And that was it. That was the question, because he read in a textbook, start your presentation with a question. Do you like sports? Well, the mistake he made was, there are 2 mistakes. Number 1, nobody cares about that question. It doesn't make people think at all. Nobody's sitting in their seat going, yeah, me, I like sports. Nobody thinks like that. Smart audiences don't get excited by that kind of question, because the audience can't imagine what the next step is. What's the purpose? The second mistake that the presenter made was the audience didn't know what to do. Should the audience raise their hand and say, yeah? Should they shout out and say, yeah? Should they, I don't know, wave? What should the audience do? So if you are going to ask a question, you need to do 2 things. Number 1, you need to make it meaningful. Make sure the question actually challenges the audience and makes them think about something that we want to solve or is connected to the purpose of the presentation. But also try to manage your answers. Don't ask the audience to raise their hand. Don't ask them to call out. Use rhetoric. Rhetoric is when you ask a question and then give the answers. You don't want to be getting your audience doing something at the beginning of your presentation. It's very risky. Lastly, don't ask impossible questions. what was the question I heard? Oh, that's right. About 10 years ago, I was working with Waseda University. It's a big university here in Tokyo, in Takananababa, near Takananababa. And they have a university speech contest. And all of their students, or some of their top English speaking students, fight against other universities for the best presentation, the best speech. And one of the members of a different university, I won't say the name, he started his presentation with this. How many, what did he say? Sheep? I forgot. How many sheep are there in New Zealand? And then he went quiet. And the audience, and there was a lot of people in the audience, everybody was quiet. Well, what do we do? Do we guess? Do we raise our hand and shout out a number? It's an impossible question. And his presentation was about how New Zealand, I think his presentation was about how New Zealand was too heavily dependent on some small industries like milk or something like that. But he started his presentation with an impossible question. No audience member knows the answer to that, or nobody can possibly try to guess. So here, I think, is a nice question. So how many people in this room today have got lost in an overseas city? The reason why this question is nice, and there are three reasons. Number one, it is realistic for my audience. My audience are probably international business people. They've probably been on a business trip or a vacation overseas. They've probably got lost. Reason number two, that this question is a good question, is because it makes people think about what the purpose of today's presentation is. Okay, is this guy going to introduce a new map application? You know, is this person going to introduce a new service for tourists in overseas cities? This question makes me think and try to guess about what the presenter is going to do. That's a good thing. I want my audience to try to guess what I'm going to talk about. Reason number three that this is a good question is because I can add something to connect me and the audience together. So I usually use a technique like this. If you're like me, the answer is probably a big yes. I often do this at the start of a presentation. I ask a question that I think is going to bring everybody together. So the question, I hope, brings everybody together and everybody kind of has a smile because in their mind, they have a story about a time they were on vacation and they were going to a restaurant. They got lost, their wife, their boyfriend, their partner, whoever got angry. That's my story. I was in Venice. And most people have a similar story to that. But I added this technique at the end. I said, if you are like me, the answer is probably yes. So this technique helps the audience understand that the presenter, me, and the audience, you, we're a team. And today we're going to solve a problem, or today we're going to go on a journey. Today we're going to do something amazing together. So again, presenters don't want to make a distance between themselves and the audience. Presenters want to help the audience understand that we're a team. We're trying to solve something together. So having a question that is realistic for the audience to answer, makes them think, makes them imagine what the presentation might be about, and hopefully brings everybody together is a great question. Do you like sports? Nothing. How many sheep in Australia? Nothing. All right, other good examples. This one here. I mean, again, it works because it's understandable. It's common. It's a common problem. It helps the audience understand, guess what the presentation might be about. So if you heard this question, who here has struggled to choose a birthday present for a partner or a loved one? I mean, everybody watching this webinar today is probably thinking right now, oh God, yeah. Every year, every birthday, oh God. So again, it brings people together. And again, I can use I can use my techniques. Hey, don't be ashamed if your answer is yes. It happens to me every year. So I've tried to bring the audience together with me. Some presenters start their presentation with a kind of a power dynamic. I'm the presenter, I'm the expert, I don't want to say boss, but I'm the source of truth. And you are the audience. The audience is out here. That's a really big mistake. Good presenters get the audience to join them on the journey. So here's a nice technique I use. Let's try one more real quick. Yeah, when was the last time you could say you were completely relaxed? This time, I don't want the answers from the audience. So I just say some choices. Yesterday, last week, last month, last year even. And then I carry on my presentation. So this is the idea of rhetoric. Use rhetoric means don't wait for the answers. Give some answer choices or give some extreme answer choices. Let the audience think about it and so they can identify, but you don't need to wait for an answer. All right, so that's our statistic or question. What about better topics? Well, in last week's webinar, we learned how to introduce our topic. Today, I'd like to share a little about topic. But this is okay, but it's not great. We want the audience to understand what impact this information could have on them. We want the audience to understand how or why this information is going to make them more money, more credibility, more status, more success, more attractiveness. It doesn't matter. Something, that's a presentation, right? A presentation has to help the audience. So one technique I often use is I tell the audience what the benefit of the presentation is before the topic. So I say, today I'd like to share a little about a product that could, and then I explain the benefit and then the topic. So for example, today I'd like to share a little about a product that could help you increase sales by 10% year over year. EST's new digital marketing platform. EST is English Studio Tokyo. We do not have a digital marketing platform, but that could be our new product. So look at what I did. In the simple technique, I would say like this. Today, I'd like to share a little about EST's new digital marketing platform. But in the better technique, I would say, today, I'd like to share a little about a product that could help you increase sales by 10% year over year. EST's new digital marketing platform. So I told the audience clearly what the benefit of my presentation is. Today, I'd like to share with you a little about a product that could change the way you think about promotion, behavioral insights. Maybe that's my presentation topic. So again, I'm trying to leave that topic a little bit later until the end. Now, last new technique is expectations. Set the expectations. What do you want the audience to achieve or learn by the end of the presentation? So we want to explicitly means no confusion. Tell the audience what they will know by the end of the presentation. If you do this with good confidence, good delivery, it's a very powerful psychological tool to get the audience to believe you. I usually say this. By the end of this short presentation, you will, and then I make a promise. I promise my audience what I expect them to achieve. So something like this. By the end of this short presentation, you will understand why 5 million people use our product every day. So I'm telling the audience, you'll have a better understanding about something. Or by the end of this presentation, you will have a clearer understanding of why we are the #1 cosmetic brand in Japan. You know, maybe we're, what is it, SK2 or something. Yeah. Now, why we are the leading cosmetic brand in Japan. So I tell the audience what they're going to learn or know by the end of the presentation. So this is my more advanced or intermediate introduction technique. I greet the audience. Hey, morning, everyone. My name's Nick. It's great to be here. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. Then I share my credibility. My name's Nick Faulkner. I'm CEO of EST, a language training consultancy with over 20 years, training some of Tokyo's top executives. Then I do my power statistic or a question. I use one of these. Then I use my topic introduction. Today, I'd like to share with you a little about a new service that could improve your marketing performance by 10%, and then the topic. And then I set the expectations. By the end of this presentation, you will have a clear understanding of why 10,000 new customers are joining our platform every day. And then breakdown and questions. I'll be breaking down my presentation into 3 parts, A, B, and C, and I'll take questions at the end of my presentation. All right, that's our new, better introduction. Okay, that's the longest part of today's webinar. Let's take a look at some questions.